Hi, welcome back. So you made it. You got the basic facial features on. Now it's time to finish refining those features, add our ears and our eyebrows. The ears take a little time. They're kind of a complicated structure, so make sure you have good references that you're looking back on. Take your time with the video and be patient with yourself. When you do the eyebrows, again, take your time, and you'll see in this video, I didn't like how I started my eyebrows, so I redid it, and actually redid it another time after that. And that's how clay works, and that's how art works. We kind of give and we take, and we go back and forth. So take your time with this, have some fun, play a little bit. Our next step after this is to add hair. So your goal is to really finish that head minus the hair at this point in time. Have fun, my friends. To start the ears, you need 2 spheres of clay that look about like this and are the same size. What you're going to do is flatten these 2 pieces into a shape that is about a 1/2 inch thick and a shape kind of like a coffee handle that's been filled in. Just like our eyes and nose, we're starting with really basic shapes with the ears. Don't stress too much about getting this shape perfect to start. To make a shape like this, I just flatten it out by tapping it down on the table, and then I'll use my fingers to kind of push down the bottom into more of a point. And we want to have 2 pieces. When you look at them together, they almost look like they make a heart. The next thing you're going to want to do is check your size. Size-wise, you want the top of the ear to reach the eyebrow and the bottom of the ear to be about even with the bottom of the nose. So eyebrow to nose is height on that ear. What you're going to do at this point is you're going to look at the side of the bust, and you want to draw a line halfway down the center of the bust. So you can see it's about 2 inches beyond the ear. And then you are going to draw a line forward to the eyebrow and forward to the bottom of the nose. Then you are going to look down at your bust. So I'm going to get above it, look down, and I'm going to draw this line all the way across and do the same on the left side. That gives me my placement for my ears. At this point then, I'm going to take an ear and I'm going to place it on this side and an ear on the other side. And at first they're going to look like they're not actually ears. They're going to look like they're prosthetics, but we'll get it there, okay? I'm going to score here, right by that line. And I'll score the back of the ear in the same space. I don't need to score here because this part's going to stick out a little bit, and I don't need to score back here because it's not going to be attached there. So I'll score and then I'll add slip and go from there. When you place the ear on, you're going to blend this middle part forward and kind of away. So you're going to lose quite a bit of your ear material there. Just in the center, you want to leave some volume on the bottom and on the top. And I place that a little too far forward, so I just shove it back a little bit. And then I'll do the same on the other side. One thing to note that students have a tendency to do is they want to stick the ears out. So they want to apply the ears like this, and now obviously that looks a little silly, right? But they think the ears stick out, so they put them out too far. Really, our ears do lie back to our heads quite a ways. They tilt out a little bit, and we get that tilt out by blending in the front and not blending in the back. So you can see those ears coming out a little bit from the side. I'm going to look at it from above and make sure they're lined up in this direction. I look at it in front and make sure they're lined up top to bottom. And then at that point, when I've got everything lined up, I'll talk with you about sculpting the ear. In class, I have this plaster ear, which is a really great resource when we're sculpting the ears, because the ear is kind of a convoluted shape. We've got this outer rim here that runs all the way around. We've got an inner rim that starts out high with the outer rim, and then it dips and tucks into that inner rim. And then we've got this interior little rim that pops in here and the hole in the ear. So every time I do ears, I always have this to look at. If you don't have a plaster example like this that you can view, I'd highly suggest getting a photo of an ear and printing it off so you have it as a reference. At this point, I'm going to be carving into this inner ear, and I really need to get it carved back in to start. I will often go in and just kind of carve in my basic structures, although sometimes that backfires against me because then I lose them when I'm carving and I get frustrated. But I'll carve in that outer rim shape, including the little dip of the ear here, the inner rim coming back and tucking in. It kind of comes straight over and then down. And then this part of the ear swoops in, and this is what can get confusing in the beginning. All right, did I just confuse you? Good, just kidding, not good. We'll figure it out. So what I want to get rid of first is all this stuff that needs to get carved down. So this is going to swoop in and get really deep through there. So I'm going to carve pretty deep back in. I don't want to carve where there's the little lobe there, so I'll carve around that. So I kind of carved this C in this way and a C here in this direction. Okay, so I've left kind of this C shape sticking out here. I've carved above it and down in, and I've carved in here. So this part of the ear swoops in. This outer rim right now I have a little on the heavy side. I'm gonna go in and kind of lighten that up a little bit, and then I'll start working more on the structures of the inner ear. I want this to come down and in, and then blend a little closer to the face, and then it blends in to that inside section here. The back part of the ear here, I'm gonna have come up at an angle towards the top a little bit more, and then flatten out. And I'll go in and round this off in a minute. I don't want it to be too angular. I'm gonna flatten this outside edge just a little bit as it comes down, or straighten it up. Get these shapes a little more delicate. Swoop in just a little bit there into the earlobe, which is going to come into the face here. I'm going to start rounding off this shape just a little bit. I always come in at an angle like I'm actually carving in the ear canal here, just to get some depth behind this little fleshy piece. The next thing I'm going to do is work on this inner rim. So this part kind of tucks behind the outer rim here, and so I'm going to push it back and down, just using this wooden part of my tool, and come over, and it kind of bisects like you're seeing here. And there's a lower part, comes in like this, and this upper part, and then it turns and blends into the outer rim. And I'm going to carve this center part a little deeper and wider here where it forks out. And then make sure this tucks lower than the outer rim. Now I'm just rounding it out.
Ears are complicated. Take your time and please do not stress.
Once I've got the basic structures that I like there, I'm going to turn my ear and I'm going to look at the back, and you can see that it's pretty thick here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my tool. One, I want to blend in this back edge of the ear a little bit better than I have. And I want to thin out the earlobe a little bit. On the back side of the ear connects through the center part the most, and then there is more separation between head and ear on the very top of the ear and on the very bottom of the ear. So I'll work on that a little bit, and angling this ear lobe out just a little bit. When I look at the ear from the front, I want this part of the ear to tuck in just a little bit. So I'll push that in as I'm looking at it from this front view. And this part to kind of pop out just a hair, not too much, unless that's the look you're going for. But you want it to kind of be out a little further, tuck in, and then out further again. Once I've got those basic structures in, I'm gonna come look again at the ear, and I'll just finish modeling those shapes. Then I'll go back to the other ear and work on that. Something my students always worry about is getting the ears symmetrical. What is important is that the ears look the same when you're looking at it from the front. Not that all this stuff on the inside looks exactly the same, because guess what? When people look at your sculpture, and when you look at your sculpture, you cannot look at this side of the ear on both ears at the same time. So if there's subtle variations there, no one will ever know. So you want them to both be believable as ears, and when you look at it from the front, you want to see the same shapes. When you look at it from the side, if there's subtle variations, I would not stress too much about it, as long as they're both believable as ear structures.
Just like the eyes, nose, and mouth, our ears are going to start off a little bit chunkier than they're going to end up. Take your time carving that clay away. Give yourself time to get the shape right without stressing that it's perfect right away. Remember, this whole thing is a process.
At this point, I've finished the ear. I've gone in and I've gotten quite a bit thinner on the lobes. I've pushed this in a little bit, pulled this out, opened up this space in the middle bit, gotten thinner in the back on the top and the bottom of the earlobe as well. And then I've gone in on my other ear and I've done the same basic process. Now, you're gonna have one ear probably that you like better than the other, and that's okay. And remember that none of our faces are perfectly symmetrical, so if your piece is not perfectly symmetrical, that is okay too. One thing I wanna note on my ears is they are too high. The top of my ears coming up to the top of my eyebrow, it really should be the bottom of the eyebrow, and this lower part should be lower. And you can see the same thing here. So, you know, I could at this point easily take a knife, chop this off, move it down without messing up my ears too bad, but I'm gonna leave them. I think it kind of creates like a little bit of an elven quality to the piece. So I'm gonna leave it in that space. After this step, I went in and I've spent some time kind of smoothing things out and adding details to the face. So I went in and I cleaned up the eyeball. I added a little bit of a dent here to show where the tear duct starts. I smoothed the eyelid. I added a little bit of some definition under the eye of some eye bags and in the cheeks too of the cheek wrinkling. I've cleaned up the nose and under the nose. I've cleaned up the lips, cleaned up the chin and under the chin. I finished this ear as well. And then I've also gone in on the back of my piece here and I've added kind of a backbone. So I just took my fingers and I pushed on each side of where the backbone would be to depress this area and raise this up. And then I pushed in through here to show these tendons on the outside of the neck. So there's kind of a dent through here and then tendons through here and then the backbone popping up through there. On the front of my piece, I've gone in and I've added some of the tendons on the neck and some clavicle work here. I want to spend a little bit more time looking at some anatomy on the front parts before I finalize this neck. But I do know that we've got two tendons that kind of start in the middle where the clavicle is and then come up to the outside, and you can see those raised. I did the same thing with this. I used my thumbs and I just pushed on either side of where those tendons would be to depress it. For the clavicles, I did go in and I added some clay and then I really spent some time blending that in. You don't want these to be too sharp unless you're going for a piece in which your bust is really thin or straining, in which case those might feel a little sharper. I've gone in under the chin. I've got a little bit of a dip here and then a little skin there. Refined the jawline a little bit, and just in general tried to go in and add some good details. And I'm always looking at things from different angles and making sure that all those angles are working right. At this point, I'm ready to add the eyebrows. The first step I'm going to do in adding the eyebrows is I'm going to draw them in. I'm not going to add any clay for the eyebrows because if I add clay, they're going to be too bushy and our eyebrows don't really stick out that much. So first draw in the shape. Make sure you draw it on both sides so it's even, right on the top of that brow ridge. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a tool like this and I'm going to carve away just a little bit all the way around that eyebrow.
Don't carve too deep here.
I do want to pause here and note something. Your forehead should come up and slightly back from that brow ridge. Don't come back at too much of an angle. If it does, add some clay there before it turns on the top of the head. Once I've got one brow in, I will do the same on the other side. Whenever I do anything like the eyes, like the eyebrows, where there's two and they're fairly symmetrical, I like to work them at the same time for each step, just to make sure they stay symmetrical. Once I've got the basic shape in there, I'm gonna go in. I usually start a little geometric and then I'll go in and I'll smooth it out a little bit.
After I carve away the clay around the eyebrow, I'm going to go in with my hands and smooth out the clay. If you're wondering how I got the rest of my clay smooth, this is how I did it. I just used my fingers to burnish that leather hard clay. It does miracles. You don't need to use a sponge.
And then at this point, I'm going to use a tool like this loop tool to basically just go in and draw in the hairs of the eyebrow. Pay attention to how eyebrow hairs grow on your face. You can utilize that information to help you position the eyebrow hairs on your piece. They tend to start up by growing upright in the middle
And as they turn down the length of the eyebrow, they're going to turn and grow along with the eyebrow. And in some cases, they'll grow down from the top and in, and the bottom and in, like I'm drawing here. Once you've drawn in the eyebrow hairs how you want them, you see how I've got this hard edge here. You don't want that hard edge with your eyebrow, so I'm going to go in and kind of loosen up that edge. You can see that eyebrow there. I'm not totally sold that I love this eyebrow shape, so I'm going to fiddle with it a little bit more. And once I get it where I like it, I'll show you the end product. Decided I didn't like it, so guess what I'm going to do? Get rid of it. I didn't like how high that was above the brow line, brow ridge, so I'm going to lower it a little bit and start again. And like I've said before, nothing's done with clay until it's in the kiln. You don't like something? Start over. As you continue to work on your piece, just keep reminding yourself that this is a process. It's going to take time to figure out the right shapes and placements of things. Continue to fiddle with your piece, play and experiment, and see what you can do. Be open to where your piece takes you. At this point in the process, I have one eyebrow to go, and then I have a face that's ready to have some hair added. Once the hair is added, we hollow it out, and then we're going to add details. We don't want to add our final details, additive pieces, until the very, very end.